Welcome to It's Possible podcast. Today is an amazing day because I have with me Miss Kanitra, and she helps nurses, right? She helps everybody. But Kanitra, please take a minute to introduce yourself and tell the people what you have for them today, please.
Yes. So my name is Kanitra Fitzpatrick. By trade, I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I have a tribe. My tribe is we help nurses build $1 million net worth through the tribe system, which is trusting God, real estate investing, insurance, business, and overall economic education. And a part of that economic education is eliminating debt. And a lot of times, our biggest debt that we have is our student loan. So helping nurses get rid of their student loan debt.
I heard the rumor that you help people get forgiveness, right? Student loan forgiveness.
Yes.
Is this only for nurses or for anyone?
No, great question. So the forgiveness that a lot of nurses or a lot of individuals that I've helped, because it was some individuals who weren't nurses, was the public service loan forgiveness. And so this was a program that they had out. If you worked for a nonprofit, a government organization, 501(c), you were eligible for your payments to count toward loan forgiveness. And so if you had 120 of these payments, your loans will be forgiven. And so people are placed on a regular payment plan. And once you make those payments and you get to that 120, your debt is erased. So whether it was $100,000 in student loan debt, $200,000 in student loan debt, $500,000 in student loan debt, it would be erased if you made those 120 payments.
Wow. So let's count this 120 payments. That
Mhm.
would be like what is the average payment someone make per on a student loan?
Yeah, so it depends. It depends on what type of loan you have. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I normally start with people like, let's do an assessment. Let's see, like, are your
Okay.
loans are in default? Are they in deferment? Deferment means they're just on pause, but they're
Mm-hmm.
collecting interest. Are they with a private sector? Because if they're with a private lender, or you're not going to be able to qualify for this program.
Mm.
So I've helped people take their loans from one type of loan to roll it over into a government loan so then they can qualify for this loan forgiveness. And so just making sure they do that assessment to see where their loans are at. And then let's get you into this student loan payment. So 120 payments is about 10 years they would have to pay.
Oh,
And so some people
okay.
are like, oh, that's a long time. But when you think about it, someone like myself, I had $210,000 worth of student loan
Ooh.
debt. So if I'm paying on average $365 a month, in 10 years, I'm not going to pay off $210,000. And
Yeah.
so I'm able to get the rest of the bill forgiven.
Yeah, that's powerful. So now, what other options are available for the people?
Yes, great question. So I actually did another option where I was able to get $70,000 of my student loans forgiven, and that was through the Nurse Core Loan Repayment Program. And so
Mm.
in that instance, you do have to be in healthcare. You can be, some of them are like social workers, you can be in mental health space. And with that, I was able to work 32 hours a week, and they gave me a check every month. And I just had to take that check and apply it to my student loans. And so in that with that service, I had to give them 2 years worth of work. So I signed a contract saying, hey, I'll stay
Mm.
at this FQHC, this federally qualified health center, which is in a poor neighborhood, underinsured individuals who need a little bit more help
Okay.
in return for this check. And when I get that check, I will put it onto my student loan forgiveness. So that was one program. There's another program where if you have Perkins loans, you're able to get those paid off as well. And so when I was a nurse on the floor, every year I just had to have my nurse manager fill out a form saying she works here. I would send it in, and then they would like get rid of a portion of my student loans every year into that
That's
Perkins loan.
powerful. All
So
right,
there's
so
a lot of
let's
programs.
yeah, we'll come back to student loan forgiveness. So you
Mhm.
do other things like real estate. Yeah. So talk to us about that, about the real estate part of it.
Yes. So real estate. So I've had a portfolio ranging from New York to North Carolina. I'm currently in Philadelphia, multifamilies, commercial properties. And the blessing was a lot of it I did inherit it from my dad. When my dad passed away, he left it to my siblings and I.
Oh,
So
sorry
that
to
was
hear
the
that.
spark of my real estate, like seeing him in real estate, that sparked my interest. And so when I became became a nurse, I bought my first property here in Philadelphia. It was a multifamily. I bought a duplex. I stayed in the smaller apartment and I rented out the
Okay.
other apartment so they would pay most of my mortgage. And I still have that portfolio. And then I got married. My husband and I also purchased properties as well together, as well as invest with friends and just keep adding to the portfolio. So for me, real estate it's a long game. I think a lot of times a lot of people want to get into it now and like just think like it's, oh, this is it. But I seen
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of it when my dad had all these properties free and clear, and they were making more money a month than I was as a nurse practitioner. So I was
Wow.
like, this is something here. But it took him a while to pay off the mortgages. Like they didn't have any mortgages. Of course, they were a lot cheaper because he purchased them in the 70s and the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that we purchased ours in the 2000s. So it's a different type of bill. But I see the power in the long term game. So had he lived, he would have had a really nice retirement plan off of his real estate properties. And
Mm.
so I just like to encourage people to just get into those assets. And that's something that you can pass down to your kids. So
That's
yeah.
good. So, do you teach that? You teach people how to buy properties or?
I do. So I have a
Okay.
community. It's the Nurse Tribe. I have a community where we educate nurses on ways to build wealth. And so my prayer is that we'll have $1 million net worth. And I know everyone's like, well, where do you get that from? Just to be able to retire comfortably, we have $1 million net worth. We can live comfortably. So that's just the
Okay.
goal. And then with the Nurse Tribe, it stands for Trust in God is for the T, because I believe that, God designed us for a purpose. Things
Mm-hmm.
don't go the way we want them to go sometimes, but in it all we have to trust God, period. Like I have a online store and that's what it says, trust God, period. Like I walk around with my hoodie and just encouraging people, no matter what life throws at you, just know we have a savior that is going to get us through and pull us through no matter what it looks like. The R is for real estate, as we just talked about, getting into real estate, understanding like real estate portfolios, how to buy your first property, different programs you can get in. They have a program called the Nurses Next Door. They help
Mm-hmm.
nurses get into homes, NACA, FHA loans. We talk about that. Also about insurance. I'm a big component of insurance. Shout out to my neighbor who just made me understand years ago the power of a permanent policy. So as soon as my kids were born, he got him a policy. He was like, you got to get him a policy. And now I understand how I can make my child $1 million baby by the time they're retired through insurance.
Wow.
And the benefits of that. And then business, the B is for business. I think everyone should own a business. If you have a 9 to 5, you should have a business. It has some beautiful tax benefits from having a
Okay.
business. And I think we get hit the most with taxes. I have
Yeah.
nurse anesthetists who, I mean, every 2 weeks they're getting hit with $6,000 tax bill
Wow.
because of the amount of money that they're bringing in. And then at the end of the year, they still owe money. So let's
Yeah.
talk about business and the benefits of having a business. And then the last one is just overall economic education. I have a team that helps individuals with their credit. Let's make sure you understand credit, how to
Mm-hmm.
build credit, and just really that financial piece on how to budget. I think for me as a nurse for years, I just had the money and I just spend it. And then I didn't realize I really should be doing things a little bit differently. So I should be saving, putting money away, putting things in places, saving for trips instead of just saying, oh, I want to go to Cabo. Let me just go book a flight. But just being a little more responsible because you never know what can happen. And the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic showed us that a lot of times, just because you make this amount of money doesn't mean that you can keep that job up.
Yeah.
I have a brother who's a physician, and he was saying during the pandemic, there was a doctor who got really ill. He
Hmm.
got so ill, he ended up on oxygen, and he
Wow.
had to come back to the unit with his oxygen tank because he could not afford not to.
Oof.
So
Wow.
I was like, well, how many of us are in that position that we're not ensuring our income? We can't afford not to work. And
Hmm.
so really having that economic education, making sure you have your emergency fund, your savings, you have your insurances in place. God forbid if something happens to you, your family is covered or you're covered, where you can be out of work but still get income because you have your income insured. So that is the Nurse Tribe, where we're just educating individuals on how to build wealth using this
That's
system.
that's that's amazing. So I didn't know about Tribe. So that's why
Yeah.
I went I went right away into student loan forgiveness. Of course, we would talk about trusting God first, right?
Yeah.
So what pushes you to have the T? the trust in God. So where did you get that from?
Life, my whole life. So it's so funny. I grew up going to church, but I really want to go to church. Like I remember as a child, like sometimes I would go to church by myself. I would walk to
Wow.
church by myself because my mom was out on Saturday night, and I have a sister who's 8 years older than me. And if she really didn't want to go, I want to go. I sat in the second pew. I took notes. I like paid attention. I felt like I knew what the pastor was talking about.
Wow.
And so since a young child, I could just remember always having a love and fervor for God, and just going through life, just seeing how he worked. And I had that personal relationship and that personal
Hmm.
testimony. So we could be here for hours talking about the trust God, because he really, when I say, just showed himself to me in so many ways. I remember even coming when I came to Temple, because you know how you get, well, when I came to college, I just asked myself, am I a Christian because I grew up a Christian, or am I a
Mm.
Christian because that's what I really believe? And
Wow.
so when I came to Philadelphia, they have a really strong Muslim population, and I never really seen it and never really heard of it. And so I'm like, well, how do I know I'm not supposed to be Muslim? And so I
Mhm.
just went on a search for Christ, and I found him, and he showed himself sure. And I just know that I know that I know that I serve the true and living God, and
Mm.
I trust him in all of that. So
Wow.
that's where the trust came from. But multiple testimonies in the middle of that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's powerful. So you know how many young adults they go to university, they used to go to church, but now
Mhm.
they're not at home anymore. So they change.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
you
God led
kept the
someone.
faith.
Yeah. And it was funny. God led me a girlfriend who, she was on the same quest. And so her and I were very similar. We were like connected at the hip in college. And we just met on a fly. Like it was kind of random how we met. And she was like, "You go to church?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I do too." And so we would look for churches together. So we would walk to different churches in the middle of North Philly. And if you're from Philadelphia, you know, back then in the late 90s, early 2000s, North Philly wasn't, a really nice, it's still working on, they still working on it. And so we would go to different churches until we found the one church that we really enjoyed, and it was in West Philly. And so we would take the bus, the train, we would get
Wow.
there. We would even faith it on Tuesdays and go to Bible study. And I remember the pastor said, if you don't have a ride, raise your hand. And so we would raise our hand, like, we don't have a ride. And someone would give us a ride home. And so I just thank God for her, because that made it, we were going in it together and I wasn't by myself. So God gave me someone with the same passion for him. And we were able to go on that journey together.
That's powerful. So how can you connect your success with your knowledge or the trust you have in God?
Well, just knowing, so for one, knowing that God is a creator and he created
Hmm.
us to create. And so really understanding that he has a purpose for my life, and that when I go through things, they're not for me, like they're really for other
Mm.
people. And so
Okay.
that faith that he's given me, it helps me to share it with others. And it just gives me purpose. It gives me drive. It gives me excitement, just knowing who God is and who he is in my life, and
Hmm.
how I can use what he's given me to be a blessing to someone else. And so I always think about the men with the talents. Remember how he gave one, gave one
Yeah.
two, one five, and they
Yeah.
went out. And I used to like struggle with that. I'm like, Lord, well, like he just didn't want to, lose it and, mishandle it. And so I was like, sometimes we do that. And I'm like, once I really got it, like he really is giving you something to go out and give someone else to multiply it. And so if he tells me how to get student loan forgiveness, for example, I should go out and multiply that. I shouldn't
Multiply.
hoard
Wow.
that to myself and bury it and say, okay, well, I got my student loans forgiven. Like,
Mm.
you will figure it out. But no, like, really take this seed that he's given me and multiply it and give it and
Wow.
spread it and share it. And that's what we should definitely be doing with the gospel, because
This is some
that's the good
word.
news. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of where I feel like that came from.
That's good because there is another extreme where people who believe in God, some people who believe in God think that you're not supposed to be success. They don't say that um, openly, but I don't know, psychologically, this is what they believe. Like if they go after being successful, they're not
Mhm.
honoring God.
Yeah, I was
So,
there.
real,
It's
okay.
I used to feel guilty that I had a lot of money. And then I remember when I met my husband, we were friends, and I was fellowshipping with his church. And like I struggled with it. And he was like, well, and I mean, it was a very small, humble storefront church, but powerful. Like, I mean, powerful. And the old pastor, Bishop Fernwood Jones, wise man of God, and he would always say, please don't leave this church without any money. If you don't have any money, come to me. Like, let me put $1 in your pocket, something,
Wow.
because God is abundant. He would be like,
Yeah.
he's like, do you know who your father is? He has a cattle on 1,000 hills. So it's like, he made me really understand that, God is a God of abundance, and God gives us to give. And like, he wasn't
Mm,
selfish. He gave us our best wedding gift out of all the guests. And so it just made me realize he was able to bless so many people because of what God poured into him financially. And it took me a while, because I said I used to feel guilty, because I feel like a lot of times poverty is glorified. And
hmm.
I know we will have times where we will have lack, and you definitely want to have faith, and he spoke of that multiple times, how God just provided. But I feel like there's so many other ways God can show provision, and it's just not through finances. So that is another thing that I really want people to understand, that poverty is a curse, and we really shouldn't be living, irresponsibly as believers. We should be tithing. We should be, giving. We should be paying our bills on time.
Hmm.
That is a part of being a
Yeah.
responsible child of God. And I mean, everyone else in the Bible was pretty wealthy. Like, I feel like when you read that Old Testament, like, I remember I was reading when Abraham and Lot, like, they had so much, they had to
Yeah.
separate because they had so much.
Yeah.
You think of um, is it coming to me? Solomon. They
Solomon,
said
yes.
if he was
Job.
alive now, he would
Talk
be a
about him
trillionaire.
all. Yeah.
And so I think we as believers, sometimes we feel like like being impoverished or not enough is spiritual, and I struggle with it.
That's a
Yeah. So
curse. That's a curse. That's from the devil. Okay.
yeah,
So of course,
yeah.
because but that's good. That's good, man.
And
I'm
to
glad
add
that
to
you
that,
share
it's
this.
it's funny that you say that, because I see it in healthcare. Like, I remember, so like I said, by trade, I'm a nurse practitioner, so I see patients, prescribe medications, do assessments. And I remember I had a young kid come in with the mom. He probably was like 5 or 6 years old, and he was sick. And I
Hmm.
said, he needs to go to the hospital right now. There's like, we can't do anything. He's like, I'm thinking he has pneumonia. He might be septic. And I said, do you want me to call the ambulance? And she was like, no, I could take him. I said, well, I would prefer that you take him to a children's hospital, because they know how to handle children. They're
Hmm.
equipped for this, versus taking them to an adult hospital. All they're going to do is stabilize them and send them to a children's hospital. And so the children's hospital was maybe 5 blocks out, but she would have to take a cab. And she was like,
Hmm.
well, I'm just going to walk around the corner, because I can't afford to take him to a children's hospital right
Wow.
now. And I said, do you want me to put you in an Uber? Like, because I know how it's going to be. I worked in a major hospital when they don't have pediatrics. Like, they're calling us to put in IVs, because I worked in a
Hmm.
neonatal intensive care unit. And so it just showed me right there that poverty could have cost his life. You know what
It
I mean? Like,
causes
if
a lot
you're
of things. Yeah, a
just,
lot of
yeah, a
damages.
lot of things. So it's really, I see the detriments of poverty and serving
Hmm.
in these communities that I serve.
Yeah. That's powerful that you believe in God and you can understand that
Yeah.
He is abundance,
Mm-hmm.
that being successful is not for yourself, but for you to be a blessing to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I understand with people who are afraid of being successful when they believe in God is because they are selfish. They think
Mm-hmm.
the success is going to be just for them. They are seeking to be successful for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But when you know that you are a blessing to the world, you need to be successful. You
Hmm.
need to have a lot of money because you need to help a lot of people.
And when you don't have a lot of money, you just worried about yourself. Like you can't, if you're struggling on paying your bills and your finances, you like I can't worry about you. You gotta figure it out on your own. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, listen. So yeah, we
that's
have to make
powerful
sure.
word right there. So we could close this today and then move on with but yes, let's go ahead and talk about
Yeah.
TR, about the R again. What was that again?
Real estate.
Yeah, you get,
Yeah.
give us something on real estate. How do you
Oh,
get
real
your
estate.
first property?
Ooh, okay, so I got my first property. It was a FHA loan. I remember when I was seeking, so I used to be vexed or very upset when I had to pay rent because I just kept saying, like, when I would give him and I love my landlord, he was a really nice guy, but I just be like, ooh, I do not want to give him this check. Like, I'd rather give it to, paying down on something on my own. And so I remember when I got everything together, got my credit situated, was saving for my down payment. I was with my realtor. We were going around the city of Philadelphia. I wanted to stay in a certain area and I wanted a multifamily. And they just weren't prevalent at that time. They were not coming up a lot. And she just kept saying, well, you could get a single family. I found a small one. And I just thank God that I was just like, no, like I know what I want and I'm going to wait and be patient for it. And so one came up in the area that I was like, I'll get it, but I probably ain't going to stay there long. And another one came up in a town, a part of town that I knew was going to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up putting a bid on it and I got it. It was $150,000. I went through FHA. At the time, my sister worked for NACA and she was trying to get me to go through NACA, but they didn't have it in the area. And so I had to put 3% down, which wasn't bad, but I had wished I went through NACA because now that I understand, I would have been able to buy my rate down. And so my sister was able to
Mm.
buy her rate down to 0.25%. And
Okay.
so I had to like mine's at the time because it was like at the fall, like when the market was about to crash. I think my interest rate was like 6.25. Then I got it down to 5. Then I got it down to 3, and I got it down to 3. I mean 3.25.
Mm-hmm.
But she has so much more equity in her property because she was able to buy her rate down, and so she was able to use that equity to buy more
Okay.
properties. And so I still have that property. It's a duplex. I rent it out, and they're paying off my mortgage. So that's
Okay.
a beautiful thing. And it has a lot of beautiful tax implications because, again, when you have a property, I'm not a licensed accountant, but it's able to have some great benefits to it. So I still have that property.
That's good. So you you bought a duplex.
Mhm.
You lived in one and you rented out one part of it.
Yeah, so it's a 2-in-1. So the bottom was a 1 bedroom, upstairs was a 2 bedroom. I've rented out the 2 bedroom because it was just me. I'm like, I don't need anybody. It's
Okay.
just me and my cat at the time. And so I stayed in the one bedroom and rented out the two, and they paid 2/3 of my mortgage. And so now I'm
Okay.
on a nursing salary, making really good money, and having this individual pay most of my mortgage. And
Wow.
so once I got married, my husband also had a duplex, so I moved in with him, and then rented out that bottom unit, and those two tenants are now paying down my mortgage.
Wow. That's amazing. That's wise. You know
Yes.
how many people out there are trying to get their the best single family to live in and pay this big mortgage every month. They say,
Yeah.
man, gonna have a duplex,
Hmm.
rent part of it to somebody, and live in part of it, and they help me pay the mortgage.
Absolutely. And then when you not only do they help you pay the mortgage, your house becomes a write-off now because
Mm.
you live, but it's also being ran as a business. And so if I had anything break, if I had to fix anything in their apartment, I'm able to write that off, that income off. And so
Because
it
it's a
has so many.
business.
It's a business. Even my
Whew.
mortgage, because I got an office where I gotta, conduct meetings, do my monthly budget, contact my tenant, do walkthroughs, whatever it may be. Now where I'm living is a write-off. And so that was a beautiful thing. And so where a lot of nurses at the time, because we were young and we were working overtime, we didn't have any children, a lot of us were married, they were owing at the end of the year. And I know some people are not big on refund checks because that means you overpaid the government, but I was just happy that I didn't get a bill because I had a lot of nurses who struggled with paying their taxes because we made so
Hmm.
much money.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, if you're a nurse out there you're making that money, you know what to do, man. Go ahead and get yourself a duplex,
Yes, yes.
and don't go for this big home. That's the first one. Yeah, that's powerful.
It didn't the math didn't math for me, and I was young, and I was, almost 15, 20 years ago. I was
Oh
thinking like
wow.
this. Yeah. So it was a while ago, and I was like, it doesn't add up. So it doesn't make sense. But again, I seen my father, who he lived in a duplex and was
Hmm.
a business owner, and took his time to buy his big house,
Wow.
and so
Yeah.
by the time he purchased it, his tenants were paying for it. And so
Yeah.
I seen that example, and I'm like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do, the same thing.
That's amazing. So you teach all of these things.
Yes. So we teach
Wow.
individuals.
Okay.
Actually, my last cohort, we're gearing up for the next one. Our last cohort, we had a new homeowner in the group. So she went to, she didn't get a duplex, but she did get a great deal. So the
Okay.
numbers made sense. She was looking for a multifamily. It didn't add up, but the deal that we ran the numbers, and I'm like, it's looking good. And so she was just excited to get her first property, and then she has other things going on to make that property beneficial, as a
Hmm.
business.
That's good. So real estate. She just dropped some gems right here. I don't know if you catch it, you do. If you don't, I'm sorry about it, but I did. Right.
Yeah,
So after real estate, the
is I for insurance.
RI,
Yes, for insurance.
insurance. Yes. Talk to us a
Mhm.
little bit about insurance, please.
So I'm a licensed agent. It happened by default because of I and this shout out to the young lady who was coming to our community, and she was like, well, by law, I can't pay you if someone in your community wants to buy insurance because you're not a licensed agent. And so she just showed me the benefits of having life being a licensed agent. And so I'm like, okay, I'll get it. Life and health. I own my own practice as a nurse practitioner. If someone needs health insurance, I can help them with that too.
Wow.
And so once I really got into that community and started really understanding, this is like what the top 1% are really getting into. And so, like I said, my neighbor, it was a neighbor of mine, licensed agent. He made sure, back then I had an IUL, my kids had a permanent policy, and I just didn't know. I just trusted him. And so I just did it. And he was like, hey, you got to pay this every month. I'm like, all right, me and my husband have our term policy. I know we got to get a permanent one. I'll just get it, and just because I trust you. And then once I got in this community, I was like, wait a minute, people are using this to leverage to become their own bank and to make $1 million babies. And I said,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize. And so now I help nurses build a net worth to help them for their retirement, because honestly, a lot of us are not retirement ready. And we don't, we're having a lot of hope in these 401ks that are not really
Mm.
performing. And the average 401k, I think, is about $200,000. And no one can live, like, how long can you live off of
No way.
$200,000? And so we show them different ways that they can put their money in different vehicles so they can have income later, or if they can use it to become their own bank, to get real estate, or to do other investments. And so the eyes for insurance. And we also
Yes.
show individuals on how to make your child $1 million baby. And so my kids have a policy until they're 18. Well, this 25, $50,000 policy that we have on them. Once they turn 18, they can take it over, and they can continue to pay that amount of money, $100 a month. And by the time they retire, that can grow into a 7-figure portfolio for them. And so just showing people how to do that, because we're saving in just savings accounts, and that's not going to work, and
Hmm.
it's not going to be enough. So the I is for insurance. And the other thing is, like I was saying, if you get injured on your job, do you have long-term care to cover you, or to cover
Mm.
your income? God
Yeah.
forbid something happens. And so I know something happens to me, it's a major hit to my family. And so they will feel it. And so if I can't work because I'm sick, we want to have that covered. And so showing people that. And I remember when I was in a unit, I was a nurse fresh out of school. It was during the crash. And I just remember hearing a wail from nurses. I
Mm.
mean, screams, because they're getting phone calls. I mean, portfolios just dropped. People who are about to retire then in
Mm.
2008, 9, whatever it was, they're
Whoa.
still working today because it just was like they were projected to retire, but because of that big hit, they
Yeah.
lost so much money and they were really upset. And I didn't understand what was going on. And so I was like, man, okay, well, y'all better get y'all money together. But I didn't know. But now I know. And now that I know, I'm helping other people understand what they have because we just, even when I started as a nurse, I just did what they told me to do. Oh, you need to put away, money for your retirement. Oh, make sure you
Yeah.
put money away. People don't have pensions anymore. They're going away. People are invested. And if you are vested, you might get $500 a month for the rest of your life, depending on how long you work there. It's not
Wow.
enough. It's not enough.
So yeah, you got to prepare yourself
Absolutely.
for it. Yes, of course. Wow. I am also an insurance agent. So
Yes, you know. So you're telling your audience already. So they already know.
yeah, so insurance and then the B,
Yes, it's for business.
business. Yeah, you got to
Business.
have business.
Absolutely. You have to have a business. And so is for business. I started out in network marketing. Just seeing the benefits of that. When you work from home, having a home-based business,
Yeah.
your home becomes a write-off. So if you don't have a duplex, but you have a home-based business, the things that you're going to pay already now becomes write-off. So I'm going to use my cell phone, but I'm also going to use it for my business. I'm going to live in my house, but I'm also going to use it for business. And so
Okay.
those become write-offs. And so I highly encourage individuals to talk to their accountant. So my best friend, she hops on everything I do. We've been friends since eighth grade. So she started in with a home-based business, and I remember her and her husband make significant amount of money. They have 3 kids. They thought they were going to be okay, and they got that tax bill, and it was like $10,000 that they owed. And I said, "Well,
Wow.
Capri, did you remember to say, hey, I have a home-based business, and this is what I'm doing?" And she's like, "No, I didn't tell her." I said, "You have to go back to your accountant." She went back to her account and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know. You didn't tell me that." And so she was like, "Oh." So she started putting in the different deductions. They went from owing $10,000 to getting a $2,500 refund. And
Wow.
so that is the power of having a home based business, some form of business, an LLC, something where you're utilizing your space and the things that you're already going to do, like your car, your home, your income, your money, and make it a write off.
Of course, yeah. So that this is so important
Hmm.
because when you make that much money, like 40% goes to tax
Yes.
before
Yes.
it even touches your hand.
Hmm.
Plus the taxes that you pay when you buy something.
Yeah, taxes like our number one expense. We pay taxes on everything. Your house, your income, your food, your clothes. Like we pay taxes on a lot of
Yeah.
things, and people don't take that into consideration on how to get some of those write-offs. And so we live in the United States who they enjoy individuals having a business because it goes back to that conversation of us as believers giving back. And so they
Yeah.
look at you as an asset when you have a business because now you can employ people, you're providing a service, you're providing a product. And so there's rewards for that. And so I believe everyone should have a business, some form of
Course,
business.
yes. Yeah, that's powerful. And having a business is not just the benefit of not paying taxes.
Mhm.
It's you being a blessing to other people, providing services to
Mhm.
other people. That's and there is a reward for that. So
Absolutely.
you can happily accept that because you're
Mhm.
providing services to help the economy of the country to grow. That's
Absolutely.
wow, okay. So every family should have business.
My kids, my sons are 6 and 7. They have a business. Like I said, they wrote a
Okay.
book. My 3-year-old, well, at the time he was 3. We took him on a trip, and during a parent teacher conference, the teacher was like, "I think you guys would love this." So she handed us a little book, and they had him draw the pictures, and then they wrote the words. And it was about the trip that we took him on to Jamaica. And I just couldn't believe how much he remembered because it was like 6 months ago, and he was like 2 when I took him. And so I was like, man, during the pandemic, like I homeschooled. I was like, we're going to turn this into an actual book. So we actually have a physical book. They have a business.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we go around to schools and we read the book to other kids. We went last year. We went last week actually to a school, and we read the book, and then we just entertained the kids' questions and just help them to think what they can do. And the premise of
Mm.
the book is called Zion Sav's Travel Adventures, and it's Jamaica because they're going to have a series of books, and the book goes through educating parents on how to get your passport, how to go through airport security, how to get through customs, because I think when it's fears when you never done it before. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just want to lighten the load. Like, this is what to expect when you go on this. And then they talk about the trip to Jamaica. And we know
Okay.
traveling for children helps them have confidence. They meet new people, they have respect for other cultures, they taste different foods, and they explore, and it makes them a little more excited about meeting new people and exploring new things. And so they have a business, and they sell better than I do.
They do, yeah, of
They
course.
do. They'll go.
And
They're
they
like, "Would
know
you
how
like
to
to try
ask for
our
the
book?"
money.
Yes, they have no, and then they know who to come. And it's funny because every time they get the money, they come right to me, and so people are like, "Oh, they know exactly who to come to." I was like, "Yeah." So they're super excited, but they enjoy it, and so I
That's
think everyone
good.
should have a business.
Wow. So a business and the
Mhm.
E.
It's for economic education.
All right.
And so that's when we talk about just the whole economic education, where so for me, I grew up very humble beginnings. My mom was a single mom. My dad was an entrepreneur, very successful. My mom is from the school of hard knocks. She was one of 12. We didn't have a lot. She
Mm-hmm.
made great money in the 80s, but didn't even know how to manage it because no one ever taught her. She
Mm-hmm.
worked at IBM, and I think in the 80s, because my sister used to do her taxes, she was like, "Yeah, did you know mommy in the 80s used to make like $40,000?" And back then, that was a lot of money. But Sam was like,
Yeah,
"Well,
that
why
was
we didn't
good.
have
Yeah.
anything? Like, what was going on?" And so it was just a lot of mismanagement of funds. But how many of us can say, "Hey, I make $100,000, I make $150,000," but we're misappropriating it. We're not putting it in the right vehicles. We're not budgeting. We're just spending.
Mm,
And I found myself in that place, and I'm like, no, this generational curse stops with me. Like, we're not going to do this.
of
And so
course.
really educating about economic education about credit, because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have good credit, you're going to pay more money. You're not going to get a car loan for 1% financing, or some people 0% financing. You're going to
Wow.
pay. I've had some people who pay like 12%, and I'm like, for a car,
Yeah.
like, you're paying $800 for a Camry. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to get into a house, and you're going to pay more on your rent than I do in my mortgage. And so really
Mm,
just talking about economic education on how to budget, whether you make $100,000, $50,000, or $250,000. We need to learn how to budget, how to save, how to invest, because the more money that we're saving, the more money we can take that to invest to make more money for us. And so the goal is to get to passive income, and so we don't have to work as hard. So that is the economic education, and that is eliminating debt as well as the
mm-hmm.
student loans, helping nurses or individuals get rid of their student loan debt, because a lot of times that's our biggest debt. I had my student loan was more than my first property. My student loan debt was $210,000, and so
Wow.
now I'm down to 126 or 125, and most of that was paid by the government. And so now I'm looking to get the rest paid by the government once I get all of my 120 months added up.
Wow. That's amazing. I heard
Yeah.
people, hey, I talked to Kanitra and she helped me get forgiveness for my student loan. So
Yes.
that's good. So yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've had so in our last cohort, I had individuals. So what I would do is assessment with them, because it's really complicated if depending on how people's loans are housed. And so like I had one nurse, girlfriend of mine, we went to nursing school. She joined a membership, and she we went on her loans were under a private lender. So she
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even have qualified for it. So what we did was we took those loans, we rolled them over into a government program, a
Mm.
government lender. And once we did that, now she qualified. And so after she did that, she was able to go back to her job. They had them fill out a form, and she said, "I worked here for X amount of years. These are the payments I made." She called me the other day. "My student loans are forgiven." She's like, "Girl, I got it in
Wow.
the mail. My student loans are gone." And this sharing information, had another nurse. she had $235,000 in student loans, and we kept going back. And I'm like, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that. Do you fill this out? And like some people just get so discouraged, and they're like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm probably ain't gonna get it. I tried before, and I'm like, no, like this is real. You have to do it. And so people are sitting on a big check, like you're sitting on six-figure check, like let's for a
Yeah.
piece of paper. That's really literally it'll take you a couple minutes to go to your job, have it sent in to them, have them fill it out and send it back to you. And so I helped that young lady do that as well, and she got $235,000 forgiven. And then another young lady that we know, she's a nurse as well. She got hers forgiven, and so just working out
235.
235.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. That's a
Yeah.
property. I'm like,
Yeah, of
because he
course.
would have been paying that. And so I have a friend who's a dentist. He has 800,000, and so just working on, all right, did you fill out your paperwork? Did you get it in? And so some people have a hard time because if you're working in the private sector, it won't count. And so you have to do some fancy things to
Mm,
make it count. You have to be creative, work for a nonprofit, start your own nonprofit and then make yourself qualify. And so those are
mm,
different ways, or you have to go back. And that was the whole thing when Biden had released the student loan forgiveness. They were going back and they were counting because they were not counting correctly from the beginning. And so people were they were already forgiven. And all they had to do was fill out the paperwork. And
oh
so,
wow, okay.
that's all they had to do was fill out the paperwork. So I don't know if the wife has any student loans, but tell her to call me because we got to get involved.
Of course, yes. Let's get this done because come on now. That's good, man. So, student loan forgiveness. If someone is, watching you right now, they want to get their first property. What would you tell them?
What would I tell them? So the biggest thing is first we got to start with your credit. Like let's
Mm-hmm.
see what's going on with your credit. And do you need anything taken off? Do you have credit cards that you need to pay down to increase your score? So that's the biggest thing. You start with your credit. The
Okay.
other thing is see what you can afford. What is your income? How much can you qualify for? And then your area, are you going to invest where you are? Like some people might live in New York City where it's
Mm-hmm.
expensive to purchase a product, and like it'll never happen, and so
Mm-hmm.
they might have to go to other places. And so then we'll determine your location, where you want to go. We got to hook you up with a realtor and then start getting properties sent to you. So some people, you're able to buy properties not seen off scene. You don't have to physically be there. Um, and then once you figure out that's the property for you, you will put a bid in it. If it's accepted, walk yourself through closing. So I've actually was able to purchase a property outside of the state of Pennsylvania, and I wasn't even there. And so it was a duplex, good price. Went in with a friend of mine, looked at it, walked through it. You can have other people walk through it for you. And if
Mm-hmm.
you feel like it's a good deal, after you run the numbers, put a bid in. And that's the thing. I just tell people put a bid in because it's like, oh, you start overthinking. And like if the numbers make sense, put an offer in. And once you put an
Okay.
offer in, if it's accepted, then you'll move forward. And so the biggest thing I would say was let's start with your credit and see what you qualify for, what area you want to go in. Then you got to start looking at different properties to see what you want to put a bid on. It's not hard. I think people just make it
Yeah.
more complicated than what
So
it really is.
once you don't know something, you'll believe it's hard to
Mhm.
get started.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's why you have a coach too, someone who has done it who can show you how to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So,
that's
yeah.
good. Man, we could spend about 2 hours talking about this right now. That was
Yeah.
good.
Uh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on and just sharing because we have so much inside that we really just have to give. And people need us. And I need
Yes.
someone else too. We just need each other. And that's the premise. And that's why, like, when I think of like growing up as a child in this village, the neighbor next door, if you got locked out, someone was able to call your mom and if you did something you weren't supposed to do, someone was going to let your mom know that too. And just this community, and that's where I believe this community is needed to help us build wealth and really overcome these obstacles that we face financially, and to break those generational curses, so we can
Hmm.
educate our younger ones. And so my next movement is actually taking a lot of this information into schools. So I'm working on a nonprofit, and we're going into schools educating young people about financial literacy.
That's powerful. So you were born in Jamaica?
No, I was actually born in upstate New York.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I was born in upstate New York. I came to Philadelphia to go to school. My husband is Caribbean. He's from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So when we wrote about Jamaica, we just went there for vacation. It
Oh,
wasn't,
gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
it just was there for vacation.
All
But they
right. All
actually
right.
are writing a book about St. Vincent. So we were able to go there this summer for about 30 days. My husband's parents are still living there. So my kids got to run free, go to the beach almost every day. They're like, I'm like, I'm tired of washing sand out of everywhere. And just got to explore the island with his mom and dad and his aunts and uncles and cousins. And so we had a beautiful time. So if you
That's
hear an
good.
accent, I just got it from them, but I'm from New York.
No, no, since you were talking about Jamaica, that's why
Oh,
I asked. There's no accent.
no,
I have an
no.
accent, so but I ain't
Yes,
gonna.
you do, you do. Yes. But sometimes people are like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from New York, but I think sometimes I pick up some of their words, but no.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
That's
I've
good.
been here for a while.
All
So
right. Well, what else would you like to share with the people before we
yeah, so I would
close?
just say, just go for it, just do it. Have faith that you can do it. I remember like for a while, like I wanted to start my own practice as a nurse practitioner for a long time, and just ran across me and a young lady, we were working on it together, ran across a couple obstacles, and it just didn't work out at that time. And finally last year I was able to branch off, and I did it. I opened up my own practice as a nurse practitioner. And what that made me realize is with it, I have so much more freedom. I have a lot of more time freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me realize you can step out on faith and just do like what is not normal, like what people don't normally do. And so just my encouragement to just whatever you want to do, you can do it. It's possible. As you have on your shirt, it's possible.
Right here.
Yeah, my 3 year old could write a book. If I can start my own NP practice, you can buy a real estate property. You can start a business. You can cover your family with an insurance policy. So God forbid something happens, they're not left in detriment. I mean, I can go on
Yeah.
for days. You should start a trust. Have a trust to protect your assets, because when my dad died, that was a whole nother thing, going to
Mm.
probate, and having the courts in your business and having to pay lawyers, and so just my prayer is really to just educate, especially I just have a passion for nurses, because I think we work hard, and we really put our lives at risk for what we do,
Yeah.
so whether it be, you get exposed to something like COVID or the flu. Like the flu, people don't realize the flu can take you out too.
Wow.
Or you can get a psych patient who is, on drugs and
Yeah,
come
of
in and
course. Yes. Yes.
do
It's a lot of, yeah,
crazy
it's
things.
like
So
being in the police, like something like that.
yes. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've been threatened, and people are in my face, but I mean, I just thank God for the Holy Ghost, because like He just knows how to help me deal with them. And
Mm.
bad situations have been de-escalated just through the power of prayer, and just like, Lord, help me in this situation. And
Mm.
so we put ourselves at risk, and our families, really depend on us and need us. We work long hours. I've worked
Mm-hmm.
12-hour shifts overnight, 16-hour shifts, had to stay in the hospital
Wow.
because of a
Yes.
snowstorm. And so we really need to make sure we're covered and we're protected, holistically, so we can be there for our loved ones as well.
That's a
So
lot of
that's my
work you're doing. That's powerful.
thank
So
you.
talk to me a little bit about your own practice. You say so it's your own office where you receive your patients, or how does that work?
So it's actually a mobile clinic. So I have a mobile
Okay.
clinic. I wasn't ready for a brick and mortar, because I like to be free, and I didn't want to be at an
Okay.
office all the time, or and just because I have two small kids, and like they the school will call you, say their nose is running, you got to come get them.
Mm.
And so I have a mobile clinic. My biggest contract right now is with the government. I service veterans, which I absolutely love, and just thank God for their service, because now that I'm in this field, I realize, man, they do a lot. And so I see them twice a week, and then I do like telehealth visits. So if someone has a sore throat, or pink eye, or they need a med refill, I can do that. And so
Powerful.
it's called Express Mobile Care, and I'm able to be of assistance to individuals. So started
Oof.
that and absolutely love it.
You're a
But that's how I was
powerhouse,
on
man.
vacation for a month, because you know I didn't have to ask anybody for time off. I took
That's
it off.
good.
Yeah.
So, women of faith, I want you to, take note right here. You understand? Because
Mhm.
for you to be powerful for God, powerful for the kingdom of God, you got to be taking on things. You got to be, taking territory. You're a warrior.
Well,
You.
I would thank God. Like, I just think of the Proverbs 31 woman. Like, man, she had property. She got up early. She was, in the market. She had a lot going on. And so
Yeah.
sometimes my husband be like, you just do so much. I'm like, I mean, it's just all to the glory of God. And it sounds
Yeah.
like a lot, but I really don't do a lot. Like, I get good sleep. I, walk 3 times. Like, I take my kids to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I walk a couple miles around their school. I help my mom, who's 80 years old, so I have to take her to the market. She likes to
Wow.
bowl. So my girlfriend can't take her. I got to take her bowling. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. So it
That's
sounds like a
powerful.
lot,
That's
but
freedom.
it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like. Sometimes it's easier to go to work for someone else, but um, it's worth the squeeze. It's worth the squeeze. Everything that I'm going through is absolutely
Yes.
worth it. It's worth
And
it.
and yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, Miss Kanitra, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you
Yes,
for
thank you.
having me. It's
And
been a blessing. My kids are like knocking at the door. They're like, "Mom, are you done?"
so yeah, yeah. I mean, this is gonna help a lot of people, and
Mhm.
I believe you'll come back. Okay, this was just
Yes,
the introduction.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can find me on all social media platforms, Kanitra Fitzpatrick. We are actually getting ready to roll out our next cohort. So just working on the back ends. If you're interested in student loan forgiveness, just inbox me. We'll set up a meeting and get on to help individuals get their student loans forgiven.
Powerful. And I'm gonna have a link under the video also, so you can just click on the link. It takes you directly to Kanitra's Instagram. All right.
Absolutely.
All
Well, kids,
right.
it's been a
Well,
pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank
pleasure's
you.
mine. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching the video today. It's possible for you to be free as a woman, as a nurse. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.